What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Clone Zone, episode 7. We're talking about battle scars today, and we got two great Star Wars content creators joining us. We have Xanthi from Star Wars Music Minute and Kyle Katarn from Kyle Katarn. Well, welcome, both of you.
So excited to be here because this is a good episode.
Yeah,
Seriously.
It was a great one. It's always kind of like a lottery where, you know, some episodes you watch it and you're like, yes, I'm so glad this is the week.
Yeah.
I can't say I went into it totally blind. I did see Tracy Canobio's cryptic tweet, hashtag good soldiers follow orders, right before I threw it on. So I was kind of braced for some sort of a, dramatic event. So
yeah, I saw that last night as well. And I was like, okay, I was hoping that we'd get like a little bit of a break from Wrecker's tragedy.
Right.
But nope, they just dove in with it.
Well, I feel like this episode, it was the one that we were all waiting for a lot of stuff to happen. It was kind of checked a lot of boxes for what we were all kind of like speculating on the past couple weeks. So
I agree.
Yeah, I was really glad to get. I didn't really want Wrecker's Chip has been kind of like I just wanted them to get it over with. And I didn't want there to be an episode to like dealing with it almost. I almost thought that it was like just going to be a red herring for something else because they were telegraphing it so like over the top that it just was like, we know where this is going. Like this is, do we need to see this be drawn out? And I actually don't think it could have been done like any better. I'm really happy with how it played out.
It was definitely before real quick we talk about the episode. I've just been enjoying getting everyone's takes on the series as a whole, asking all of our guests what they think of it. So Kyle, what were kind of your expectations going into the Bad Batch and how has it been sitting with you?
Honestly, I really didn't know what to expect from this as a series. I knew it wasn't going to be just a continuation of the Clone Wars. And really my only context was that one limited arc in season 7 of the Clone Wars where we got to meet the Batch for the first time. And so I was like, okay, well, what exactly can we expect here? Because the Clone Wars are done. These are a bunch of soldiers. Where can the story really go that's engaging? And they snuck in, as Filoni always does, this really endearing story about found family and what it means to forge your own identity and not be, indentured to a greater cause that you don't believe in anymore. And that wasn't really the direction I expected it to go in. So my expectation was a big old question mark, and it was met very quickly, I would say. And I don't know, I've been loving every episode.
Great. Xanthi, how about you?
I was not too excited about the show. I mean, I was excited because it was new Star Wars, but like many people, I did not feel a connection to the Bad Batch in Clone Wars. And, I sort of worried that it was going to be another, I don't know, show about action war clones being superhero types. And so far it's been pleasantly surprising me. I actually am like, I'm someone who doesn't like looking at any sort of leaks or spoilers. And like, I didn't even watch trailers. Like I try not to even like follow tweets or look at too many like breakdowns and stuff, because I feel like those color my view a little bit. So I'm trying to not like editorialize, like I'm trying not to think too hard about the themes yet. I'm just trying to enjoy it as it goes along. And so far I'm enjoying it.
And are you enjoying the music specifically?
I am. I like I have a lot of thoughts on the music. I am enjoying the music. I'm enjoying the music and I'm enjoying the sound design. It's not what it's better than I was expecting. And I think a few of the themes that we're getting are really interesting, and I would like to see them develop more.
I was introduced to you like 2 weeks ago, and I just love that kind of content because I know that I like Star Wars music, but I don't know much about music theory or like themes and all that. So I was excited to be able to talk about some of that as we go through this episode. But yeah, we can start breaking down battle scars specifically now. And if you've never seen the show before, we're going to just talk amongst ourselves for the next 20 or 30 minutes. And then we will take some questions from chat for about another half hour. If you want to put your question into the queue, you can do that through super chats. But what did everyone think of Battle Scars? Did you have any maybe favorite moments? Molly, let's start with you this time.
I just like how tense the whole episode was. It was like you could just feel it the entire time, kind of just like, okay, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And I loved Rex showing up, kind of like it reminded me of Strider, Lord of the Rings. He's kind of like sitting over in the corner with the hood over his head and everything. I liked that was who that was. So we got that little tease at the end of the last episode. I know you thought it was maybe Bale. A lot of people thought it was going to be Rex. You know, there's a lot of names flying around, but I thought Rex made the most sense. And it was really cool to see them go to Braca, because in our last stream, Chaco basically said exactly what was going to happen in this episode. He was like, yeah, they got the Venator class Star Destroyers there with the kind of medbay that they would need to do something like that. So that, yeah, they might go to Braca for that. And then that happened, and like my mind was blown. So props
that
to
was
him.
Pretty exciting to be right for once about something, because I was way off on who the person in the cloak was. Kyle Xanthi, how did you feel about Battle Scars?
Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, well, I just like Molly was saying, I absolutely felt that tension all the way through. And that, I think, was in large part due to the sound design, the way it had this tension, this constantly in the background, and then it would cut out and you'd be left with silence for these these moments that would provide like a punch. I really like the environment, especially Braca, the way you had that creaking metal and just like this weird ambient, like you felt like you were in a graveyard, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't want to dive too deep into like the main crux of the episode to start off with, but I do love how much time they spent over the last previous couple episodes showing you how like gentle Wrecker can be and how childlike he can be, to show that juxtaposition later when that ship does its thing. The way he's like really big and tough, but he's scared of heights. In the beginning of the episode, the lizard, what was his name? Ruby jumps onto his face and he freaks out like a little kid. He's like, get it off me, get it off me, get it off me.
Hits his head again.
Like they show he has so much innocence in him for this big bad killing machine that like it created a great dynamic when it finally like shifts, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting point, because there's been a lot of talk, especially in the early episodes, about how they are programmed. And it's like, yeah, Wrecker was probably created and programmed to be a big bad killing machine. But it's interesting that he turned out to be kind of the opposite. I mean, he loves explosions and stuff, and he's formidable in a fight, but he also has that soft side, which I'm sure the Kaminoans weren't intending.
Though I'd say he was programmed to be a killing machine for whoever he had orders to kill. So otherwise, I can imagine someone being programmed to be like a happy killing machine, not like a...
That's a fair point too.
Like,
that would probably be the best case scenario. Like, stoked to do it.
Knowing what we know about the upbringing of the clones and how like isolated they usually are, and they only really interact with other clones. Like, we're not talking about highly socialized people, and the Bad Batch probably even more so. I imagine they received their training and education separate from the regs, as they call them. So they probably haven't had like any sort of formative interactions during their growing up. Like up until meeting Omega, that was probably the first time he found someone that he could interact with on that level.
Especially, yeah, we saw the clones, just the regs treating them kind of mean, and Tech being like, yeah, that feels right. Nothing seems to have changed.
Yeah, and they really don't have a lot of social skills. We keep seeing that pop up in episodes of like them kind of getting taken advantage of and not knowing, how the world works outside of being given orders.
I feel like their social skills are fine, but it's more so the last thing that you said was like they don't really understand where they fit in the whole world. Back to Wrecker really quick before I share my overall thoughts. Now, the more that I think about it, the more that I think if you're going to make a killing machine, you actually would want them to be like not killing all the time. Like you would want to breed them to be really docile toward like you.
Right.
Yeah, the designated people.
Off button.
So case closed. No. Um, my favorite part of the episode was, other than like the sound design, I thought was really fantastic. Especially in that whole like middle spot. It was so detailed and so many layers. It was really, really amazing. But the thing that really stood out for me the most in the episode was just the episode, like the feeling of it, the emotion, the acting, the story, just the emotion, like I felt something at the end of it. Like I was probably more emotionally impacted in this episode than I have been in any of the previous episodes, which have been more like a mental game, like, oh, okay, this is happening and fit that puzzle piece in,
It
Yeah.
definitely a feeling of like relief. And Molly, like you pointed out that this did feel like a lot of just checking off boxes of like, okay, let's answer some of these questions because they've been raising a lot and they've been teasing the Wrecker thing for a while. So it's like, let's just take care of some of this stuff. It's like, yeah, Rex is the contact. Wrecker's chip is fine. Everyone's chip is out.
Yeah.
It felt like kind of a mid-season finale almost, which it's almost halfway through the season, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
the
hit
past-
that level of drama.
Past couple episodes have been like really action heavy, so I appreciated how this one was a lot more mellow and, like you said, like it was all story and characters just talking and acting.
Yeah, the acting was great. The acting was so good.
I any more Fallen Order fans in here? Because that's like one of my favorite Star Wars stories ever.
Oh,
I was just
absolutely.
thrilled to see them go to Braca and get to visit a place that also didn't mess with anything, because some of the stories in the Bad Batch have kind of messed with other stories. Like it hasn't angered me or upset me too much, but I was a little worried when they went to Braca that they would do something like that, and they didn't at all. Like it felt perfect to me.
Braca was great. They even went so far as to show us like the Scrappers Guild wearing the little uniforms that we see Cal and Prof wearing later.
Alex, were you disappointed that we didn't see a tiny Cal running around in the background somewhere?
Not really. I mean, I would love it if they do it, and I think they're probably still going to be on Braca next week. So there's potential, but no, I think that that's ultimately something that's kind of a stretch, because he just survived Order 66 and is just getting used to life on Braca. So I'm not really expecting them to do it, but I will be happy if they do it.
I have this mental image of him sliding out of the escape pod down a Venator and then just like punching a time clock, throwing a poncho on, and like getting to work.
I feel like they had a pretty good reason to go to Braca.
Yeah, I don't think it's a wasted opportunity at all, because the symbolism of the Republic being torn apart and showing that, yeah, these Venator, everything you once fought for and even fought on is gone. But then the end of the episode, Rex has that moment of like, no, it's not. Just because the Republic itself is gone, like what it stood for is still around. It still exists, and you can still fight for it.
Right. And that's kind of like for any surviving clone right now, it's like they probably feel like their purpose is done and they don't know what to do now. But it's like, no, you still have a purpose. It's not what you were originally meant to do, but now you have to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
The shot of them all standing on that Venator looking out at just like the sea of just ruin, all the scrap ships. Like really, they're standing there looking at the graveyard of their former purpose. That's all they've ever known, all they were ever raised for, and it's just rusting in front of them. Like what better way to show visually that the Clone Wars is the past now than showing it literally decaying on screen?
It does make me wonder if Braca was developed for Fallen Order and the Bad Batch at the same time. Because it fits this series so well. It feels like more than just a happy accident, that I wonder if they were kind of developing it for the Bad Batch, and then Fallen Order was like, ooh, we can use that. That would be cool.
Well, wasn't the Bad Batch like developed for the Bad Batch? I mean, like the Bad Batch arc in Clone Wars developed with Bad Batch in mind.
I don't know how long the series has been in anyone's mind, because like they were going to be in season 7 of the Clone Wars back in 2014 or so. But I do wonder, if they were planning on like making this series since that far back. I don't know.
I do know that in terms of the publishing timeline, the first official appearance of Braca was in the Resistance Reborn novel, which came out in the lead up to the Rise of Skywalker. Right thereafter came out Jedi Fallen Order. But the novel location wasn't very descriptive, didn't really talk about what the planet was like. So it was simply the name being offered, I guess.
A little name drop, like how they name dropped Batu everywhere. Not everywhere, but in a few places where
Exactly.
God's edge.
It feels like every episode has had like a little, like the popcorn today, or
The popcorn. Yep, they sell that at Galaxy's Edge.
Yep, or
Well,
Omega's
I wanna
little
try
bubble.
it.
they sell Outpost mix or
Delicious.
What does it say on the package, Molly?
Galactic Berry Crunch.
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm sure. Okay,
Focus.
they should call it. Why don't they just call it Mantel mix?
I think
I
it's probably
know.
different per planet.
Yeah.
That's just Ord Mantell's
Something mix.
version of it.
Popcorn, like pancake, like waffles, are canon. So that's great.
It is very good though, so I understand why they racked up such a expensive bill. Yeah, tab. Yeah.
It's expensive popcorn.
Yeah. Speaking of the expensive bill, that was another thing I found interesting, is that the batch of, like, for just where they are right now in their position, they've left the Empire. They don't want to be beholden to that anymore. And here they are, indentured yet again with this huge bill to Sid. Now they have to work off this debt, all this fuel, all this food. It's like they can't quite seem to break out from being under someone's mantle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
good point.
That's their ultimate where they're trying to get.
Yeah, someone's Mantel.
I think I appreciate seeing that practical hustle, because one thing with following all the Jedi storylines is, I don't know, I always sort of think like, what business model are they running at any given era? And I think it depends a little bit on the era, but stories in Star Wars tend to be like, the heroes, they tend to be people who, like, we don't have to see them worry about money ever. And that's something we really take for granted. And thinking about like how audience members can, apply Star Wars to their life or feel seen in the characters and whatnot. It's sort of this like suspension of disbelief that we all undergo, which is like, well, people in movies don't have to worry about hustling to survive, other than like actually fighting off really scary things. The Jedi aren't like, oh, I can't afford another robe change or whatever. It's just like assumed that you have everything. So I like seeing this. I like seeing this.
Mm-hmm. And
I think it's
Absolutely.
great. Oh, go ahead, Molly.
I was going to say it made me think of like other kind of seedy areas in the galaxy, like when Luke has to sell his speeder at the in Mos Eisley. That just made me think of that, and I was like, when is there another time where someone had to give something up for money?
Yeah, other than like Rey's portion bread, but that's really like a plot that she leaves behind, and then suddenly never is a problem again.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great idea for watching the Bad Batch as they're trying to figure out, how to live and survive without a safety net of the Republic, and just not understanding how things work. And they're like, okay, I guess we're mercenaries now, but treating it like they're soldiers. And it's just like, well, we're given our orders and we were taught to never question those orders. And we don't know who we're working for exactly, what we're getting this lizard for, what it's going to be used for, or like the data rod from the tactical droid in the previous episode. They're just doing what they're told still, and kind of having to learn that they can't do that. They have to know what they're doing, who they're fighting for, why they're doing it at this point.
I mean, their eyes are sort of being slowly opened, sort of like how Finn's are, in The Last Jedi. He
Totally.
comes from this really rigid, like born, brought up, he's a stormtrooper and all of that. And as he meets people, like we see his eventual stripping of his naivety. And the Bad Batch, the clones, are all very naive. And it's like every person he sees, and every person the Bad Batch meets, and like everything they go through, like they're view of the galaxy is getting a little bit clearer, and not just their view, but their feelings about where they might want to fit in. Like, so by this episode, the fact that when Rex is like, no, you have to get these chips out, like, I like that there wasn't much of a debate, that they were like, okay, yeah, and then they just do it.
I think they were all on board with that.
Especially seeing kind of what Crosshair's going through. And speaking, I'm glad we'll probably be running into him next episode, because I have been missing him. But
I did see this comment a couple of times. I think it's understood that they all got them out. They're not going to
Yeah.
show.
Next, and then
I think it was heavily
people
implied that
waking
they
up.
all went through the process. We didn't see Hunter have a sweet skullet though after his operation. So there was that, but
He's like, don't mess with my hair.
yeah,
exactly.
I think they
you
showed
can take the
the
chip
people,
out, but don't
Yeah.
just leave my headband.
I think they just showed like who's next, and then they showed Tech. Did they show Tech waking up?
Mhm.
And that's the only one I really wanted to see, because I was like, make sure they do the one that's operating this too. So it seems like they switched and
I
covered
was
him.
curious to know what it was that made the chip go haywire. It seemed like it was the scanner itself as the instrument got closer. Like there was like maybe a frequency thing happened, or maybe it just was ready to go and coincidentally that was the moment. But it wasn't clear to me what it was that finally set it off.
Wasn't it
like,
that he
right
said
before
Order
the surgery
66?
started.
Oh, did he?
Well, Rex said, you guys are lucky. Everyone else
Oh,
was affected
man.
by Order 66.
Yeah, he said it was rare. He said there were some clones, which means
Yeah.
maybe he's
But he said
encountered
the
another one.
phrase
That
Order
went
66, and then the fact
right
that,
over my head.
and then Wrecker, when he was like going on his rampage, he said Order 66 too. You're in direct
Yeah.
violation of Order 66, and he used that specific phrasing, and they had not heard that until Rex had.
That's a
or
very good
until
point. Maybe that's what did it.
yeah, what's his name? Rex. Yeah, Rex had said that.
I think
neither
that
of
has
us
to
got
be it.
that.
I had
Also,
the same question where I was like, that just kind of went off. I guess that was bad timing, but nope, he absolutely says it.
Molly brought up the Strider reference with Rex earlier. I feel like there was another Lord of the Rings reference with the Watcher in the water, like don't disturb the water, and then like be set on by all these tentacles, like trying to just grabbing Frodo, grabbing Wrecker. That's immediately where my mind went, was that sequence going into Moria, getting attacked by the Watcher.
Alex, I meant to ask you what you thought about how big that Dianoga was.
Well, see, I don't know if I'll be interested to see it in the StarWars.com breakdown, because it definitely looks like a Dianoga, but I was also kind of in my head canon, I wanted it to be part of the Ibdis Maw, which is on Braca. It's like this big creature that eats Star Destroyers. So I was kind of hoping that it was that, like a baby Ibdis Maw or something.
What does
I
the
was waiting
text
for an
say?
eyeball on stock. I didn't see one. Was there one?
I don't know.
Not that I saw.
I thought one of them specifically said, "Oh, that's a Dianoga," assuming Tech.
Maybe I missed that.
So it sounded like a Dianoga
Definitely.
from
It also did
Galaxy's
sound like
Edge.
that.
Or like, if you've been to if you've been to Galaxy's Edge, and like you go to the restroom or you get a drink of water, you can hear the Dianoga in the pipes, making creaky sounds everywhere.
That's cool.
And I heard that a lot in this episode.
But I was
Maybe
listening.
Dianogas eventually turn into Ibdis Maws. I don't know.
But also, I was like, that is a big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was listening to the Force Center a little while ago, and I didn't get to finish the episode, but they mentioned that maybe they're like goldfish, and if you give them a really big place, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And Braca is basically like an all-you-can-eat buffet for Dianogas and
That
garbage
makes sense
water.
for me.
I like that. Because otherwise, if they're living in small pipes, then sure, maybe they stay smaller.
Yeah.
Now I want to
something
see a
else.
Hut Palace with, like, a Dianoga
another
koi
fun
pond
Galaxy's Edge
nested.
tie-in. Oh,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Something else I liked about that scene is when they're crawling across that chasm. Just the yellow like cables they were crawling across is a very video gamey thing. Like that's just often a signal of this yellow thing is what you're supposed to use. And I was like, those are in Fallen Order. And it even looked like that plug that you kind of have to use sometimes when Wrecker was at the end of it. So nice little Fallen Order tie. I appreciated that.
Did they
Speaking
really
of,
think Wrecker could make it across on one of those cables? He's a big guy.
I like that
Speaking
they
of
made
video
sure he
games,
went last.
Did you catch that the card, the symbol for Toughen Up from Battlefront 2 was on the medical door of the unit?
Oh no, I didn't see
That
that.
was the same symbol they used for the cards in Battlefront 2.
Oh, cool.
I think the KOTOR med packs as well.
Okay. Oh, that symbol.
Yeah, it was up
Okay,
on the door, and then it was
What is
also
the
in
symbol?
the examination tube.
Okay. Like the little first aid kind of symbol.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a plus with a slash through it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I do want to make sure we touch on some music. Xanthi, it doesn't have to be specific to Battle Scars, but what have been your favorite themes, or maybe something you've been noticing developing over these past 7 episodes?
Ooh, well, there are a lot of good, interesting musical moments in this episode alone, but overall, I think my favorite theme so far is Phoenix. So I do hope we hear that again. When Fennec comes back, that would be nice. And the Bad Batch theme, we keep getting teased, and we hear that the most. Omega's theme, we're getting teased a little bit every episode, but we don't hear it like really big out in the open like we did in the first 2 episodes, which I think is interesting. I keep thinking like this is gonna be the episode when we like really get a major instance of Omega's theme, but I do think that's gonna happen in episode 8. I really think so. I mean, I think so because the soundtracks are coming out, the first one is gonna be episode 1 through 8. So I feel like there is gonna be something on there that I feel like there's got to be some more music next week that will for the album. But in this, there's like a weird coincidence in this episode, and it sort of reminds me of. I wish my piano were connected to my audio here, but before we get to like most of the action, like toward the beginning, before we get to all of the Dianoga stuff, we get this little 3-note motif that shows up a lot in the sequel trilogy, especially in The Force Awakens, actually all over The Last Jedi. And it's I'll try to hum it, but it's like doo 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 doo. And the musicologist Frank Lehman and I think some other people have notated a lot of what the incidental motifs that they've noticed are. And so that one is, he calls it the subterfuge one, but regardless of what you choose to name it, there's no official names. It's just, what one person decided to name it because it pops up everywhere. And actually the first time it pops up is in The Force Awakens right before the Rathtar scene. So I thought it was interesting when I heard that. And then we got like a Dianoga thing, which, looked kind of similar to a Rathtar thing.
That's awesome.
I think it was definitely a coincidence, but moments like that where my ear perks up and I think I'm about to draw a connection, often like I have to talk myself down from the ledge and just remind myself that like in music there are coincidences everywhere, and that's such a non-specific thing that I wouldn't want to read into it that much. But I just think it's a fun coincidence that we got that like in a Rathtar and a Dianoga scene or episode.
It's so funny that it's so funny that you like talk about having to talk yourself down from making these connections too literal, because it's like that's everything. That's something that all Star Wars fans should do. Is like not everything is connected that
oh my gosh,
hard,
yeah.
but
I feel that way very strongly about music, because I feel like when people know a little bit about music, then they notice connections everywhere. But then when you know a little bit more, you start realizing these connections are natural byproducts of just a lot of music. And so there's this like progression of seeing way more connections, like way more than is probably intentional. And then stepping away from that and being like, it's a big world. There's lots of coincidences. Probably is nothing unless you really have a reason to believe that it is. Like, let the evidence mount before drawing conclusions as to like the intent and like, oh, this meant that this character was doing this. And like, you can just really follow the breadcrumbs to a really bad degree. And yeah. So as I just finished explaining a breadcrumb.
I still think that's super cool. And I'm definitely going to be listening out for next week because, halfway through the season, it does make sense to have, it seems like it's almost a 2-part episode sticking on Braca, and to have something big for Omega or the Batch. Because Molly and I have been kind of waiting for Omega's theme to really kick it up to 11.
Yeah, ever since I noticed it, I was like, oh, okay. I hope we get a moment in an episode where we figure something else, like maybe kind of big about her character, and we really get to hear it on all of its glory, because I keep hearing little bits and pieces of it and getting excited.
I think the best instance of it was in the credits of episode 1 and in episode 2 when she's seeing her room. Those are the big ones. But we did get like a little Omega theme in like the celeste and harp, I think, in this episode. A couple other spaces, like tomorrow when I stream on my channel the music commentary with my friends James and Justin, I'll have more prepared on that thing because there is a lot to go into with that. But Omega's theme is probably, I'd say, has even more material in it than the Bad Batch theme proper.
Well, I look forward to seeing. Yeah, that I had no idea that those the soundtracks are going to be released kind of in halves like that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That's cool.
Speaking of Omega, I did want to also mention I loved the scene that she had with Rex, where they kind of get like really close, and she's like, "Oh, you're Generation 1. I can tell from the lines on your face." And like, she's very perceptive in a lot of different ways, and she just knows a lot about the clones, I guess. But I thought that was interesting because it's like he was the first generation, and she's like the last of her kind.
I think that really speaks to what I've been saying since the beginning, that her enhancement as a special clone is intuition. And that she can just sort of look at something and figure it out pretty much the first time. And like the Ordo Moondragon, she just sort of studied him for a minute, figured out what he needed and made the trade. Like she seems to size things up like very effectively and very quickly. And so I think that's exactly what happened with Rex. Looked at him in the face and like, oh, I can see what I need to see here. I have all the information just from looking at you. And then she translated skill sets. Like she did Fennec Shan's tuck and roll move the episode after she encountered her. Like she's picking things up from everybody. She's like it's like a sponge,
Yeah.
Skill sponge.
Most kids are, but yeah, she's especially perceptive.
I hope they don't drag it out too much longer, the same way they didn't drag out Wrecker's Chip or Rex or anything. Like I'm ready to learn what's up with Omega, I think. So maybe we figure that out next week as the music swells.
I actually stopped caring. I don't actually really care what her thing is because I feel like she's already been so special.
Yeah.
I almost forgot that, like, oh yeah, she's supposed to have like a thing. And then I'm like, is it this or that? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. I don't super care. I'm not like tied to that. Like I almost sort of wish they drag it out and just and then it ends up being that she's not really that special on purpose.
Her enhancement is just that everybody loves her, no matter what.
Her enhancement is just that she's the last one, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there will be a more concrete answer, but I just don't know. Yeah,
that's a good point too, because for me, Rey's journey in the sequel trilogy, I wasn't crazy about her being a Palpatine, so I'm trying not to get my hopes up for any direction of like what Omega's thing will be, because I've been burned before. Right?
Totally.
I'm just
personally, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Personally, I'm really hoping that Omega's like ultimate purpose is to give us some very necessary context on what exactly is going on behind the scenes with the Imperial technology we see in The Mandalorian. I'd like to learn the fate of Kamino. I'd like to learn why that technology is now only in Imperial hands, and when that secret project of cloning sort of began in the shadows. And if we can get some answers from learning Omega's purpose, I think I'd be very satisfied.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
I think that will be her purpose for the audience. Yeah.
That's still sticking with Omega a bit. I think that if I loved this episode, if I could criticize it for one thing, I do wish that there were a little more consequences for Wrecker's Chip going off. Like it all just seemed to get resolved very quickly. And I was like worried that Omega and his relationship would be damaged. And now I'm kind of split on it because like I didn't obviously I didn't want anyone to get hurt, but I did love seeing just the type of person that Omega is. That
I
she
was gonna
was like,
say, did you want Record to hurt someone?
no. Like, I just
You
thought
wanted
that
Omega to be
everyone,
more obviously affected.
Mm.
yeah, I thought it
Just
would
slightly
affect the
higher
team
stakes, I
dynamic.
guess.
But like, I loved seeing that she was just like, no, I understand that was not you, and I forgive you. And that, like, she didn't even seem to think that he needed forgiveness because it wasn't him, and she knew that. So I did like that, but I could have stood to see a little bit of the dynamic mix up for an episode or two.
I feel like that was a normal trauma, like sort of trauma response though, where you don't really like, I feel like the PTSD is going to be far worse than this part. And also I think like, I don't know, maybe this is too overthinking it, but I feel like when your caretakers like if your caretaker turns on you and then they come back, but like you really feel like they're the only people you have, you sort of it's like a psychological response to forgive them and to like be welcoming to them. Like when you're a kid, it's not safe. It's not safe to reject your caretaker. So it is in her best interest to still
Yeah.
like be welcoming and part of the fold, if that makes sense.
No, that does. Well, we should or can start getting into some chat questions, but does anyone have anything they wanted to bring up before we do that?
I love that Sid is like dissing the other lizard. At the beginning. Yeah, because I mean, Trandoshans are lizards, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely. I think
it's-
I
think
guess
it's
that'd be
interesting.
like us saying like that's a weird looking monkey. Just if
Yeah.
you're at the zoo or
one
Yeah,
last observation that I made is that the title of the episode itself, Battle Scars, I feel like is a reference to Kanan talking about Rex in what was it, season 3, episode 6 of Rebels, the last battle, saying some battles leave scars, some you can't see.
Mm.
oh, yeah.
Like and we started this show off with Kanan as a child, fleeing from the batch, fleeing from Order 66, and then here he is giving us the name of this episode as an adult, and it's about Rex. So I thought
Yeah.
that was some awesome symmetry in the writing there.
Good catch.
catch.
Point. Good point.
All right, let's jump into some chat questions. Lawrence Fletcher, thank you for your question. The first question of the night: why do you think Omega doesn't have an inhibitor chip? That is a good. They did talk about her as if she didn't have a chip at all.
Yeah, she said she didn't have one.
So
Not
that
that
is
she
interesting.
I think it's because she wasn't bred to be part of an army.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Same reason Boba Fett doesn't have an inhibitor chip. He wasn't
Mhm.
part of the order that was placed.
Yeah, and that's it goes back to Cut's question of like, okay, the Kaminoans don't create without a purpose. So what is her purpose? And yeah, I think
Right.
Kyle, you're probably onto something with all that future connectivity.
We've also kind of talked about whether or not she has accelerated aging. I mean, I guess we'll find out soon enough, but do you guys think that she does, or is she more like Boba Fett?
I think it would be a very clever move to make her more like Boba Fett so that we can get live action adult Omega at some point in the Mandalorian timeline. Just that's the meta thought process behind it, but I could really go either way in terms of just what we know in universe.
In universe, I think I would guess that she doesn't have accelerated aging. I feel like her purpose is something more self-serving toward the Kaminoans, like for Lama Su or something. I guess I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of the Kaminoans and that they didn't seem. I mean, they were upset that she left, but I guess we don't know the extent to how much they're really trying to get her back. Probably a lot. Now that I think about it, probably a lot.
But I hope to see Nala Se again and like learn a little bit more about their relationship, because she helped her escape pretty much. So it's like, what does Nala Se want for Omega?
It definitely feels like a bunch of levels of like Lama Su is like, we got to get those clones back, and Nala Se is like, totally, and just hiding the fact that she let them go. And meanwhile, they're both working behind the Empire's back. So I'm really enjoying that plot, and I hope it gets revisited soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Kaminoans want cards to hold. Like,
Mhm.
is that the phrase? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're holding their cards close as much as they can.
Yeah,
I
they want to
also
stay
wonder if they want
relevant.
Omega purely as a concentrated source of Django material.
What
Like
was
that
that?
could also be her main value to them.
Yeah, they did seem to say that she was important to their future somehow.
To their production process
Yeah.
somehow, maybe. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Let's see. Next up, Ice Fisher Tenacity. Thanks for your super chat and question. Thoughts on if we'll see Prof training young Cal?
Probably not. Like I would be on board with it. It does feel a little too like wink wink nod nod, but as a Fallen Order fan, I'd be into it. Just to see like a Abednego kind of taking a young kid under his wing. And that's it. That's all you need. I'd be into it, but I think it's unlikely.
I think if we see Cal, it'll be like a him and Omega kind of interacting as two children, and maybe they'll bond over something.
I mean,
Back
I
when
think they have a lot to bond over after. I mean, they both just experienced Order 66, basically.
Yeah, back when I was like, oh, I really think Omega's force sensitive. I was like, okay, if Omega does ever meet Cal, maybe she will sense something in him, or they'll sense something within each other.
I was going to say, I think she might inadvertently blow up his spot. If she met him, she would take one look at him with her intuition and be like, oh, cool, you're a Jedi.
Right.
With her
Yeah,
childlike
he's like-
innocence. And then, whoop, got to find a new planet again.
Has Omega ever used the word Jedi? Does she? How much does she know about the Jedi?
I don't think she ever has.
I can't recall.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I guess she heard them talking about how Sid worked with the Jedi. So I assume she knows about them.
Or has heard
But-
the word and
Right.
Yeah.
She probably knows that clones are trained to serve for Jedi, or at least that's how it was. And Jedi is just
Yeah.
some rank, like if without context. But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I've just assumed that she would know, but yeah, I don't know that we've had any
We're
confirmation on
entering
that.
that time period where Jedi become less commonplace and less
Mhm.
people are aware of them. Like we're slowly getting into that mystery.
yeah,
Mhm.
like as of a month ago in timeline.
Right.
That would
I
be
feel-
interesting to see. Oh, go ahead.
No, I like the idea that in my head canon so far, Omega isn't super hip to the whole Jedi thing and maybe understands that they exist and that they're a thing. Maybe knows about the Force, but probably not. And she might feel the Force, but not enough to be like, oh, I see it in you, and like to be super indoctrinated in it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I agree. If she uses the Force, I think it'll be a surprise even to her. Just like an instinct thing to save her and her family.
Agreed.
Nerdy Seb, thanks for your question. Next week's episodes will probably be them escaping Braca and seeing Crosshair again, because in the trailer we saw a downed Venator blown up. Yeah, I think that's likely. For Xanthi, who doesn't watch the trailers and stuff. Yeah.
Oh no, spoilers.
I must have missed that one too. I figured as much though.
Yeah, I think that you can see more Venators at like nighttime. So I think we're going to start on Braca and have to have them interact with Crosshair again, especially the way the Scrapper Guild called them out at the end. So I think Crosshair will show up finally.
On Braca, my first thought is we've got Crosshairs really close to a Venator medical station. Can we finally rescue this guy? But I think they're going to dangle that in front of us and not give us that resolution.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. But I see them drawing it out just a little longer because we've had 3 episodes in a row with no Crosshairs at all. We need to see him do some evil chip stuff before we finally give him redemption, you know?
I'm so worried about him.
Yeah.
Like his mental health. Okay,
Yeah.
the fact that Wrecker was like, I tried to stop it, but I couldn't. So like the fact that he was like aware of it while it was happening is like horrifying when I think about what Crosshair might be going through.
And the fact that they keep like putting him under the, not the knife, but whatever that thing is to keep dialing the chip up. Yeah. And
Mhm.
season 6 of the Clone Wars, when Tup's chip malfunctioned, he he mentioned it being a nightmare before he died. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that
it's
was
not.
so freaky.
Yeah,
It makes
it's
makes you
bad.
wonder if all of these clones who actually went through with the order, if there isn't some small part of their psyche that is just like locked away and screaming that they can't access because, like, you murdered your best friend from the war that you served under, and now you
Mhm.
just go through the rest of your life as an Imperial. But like deep down, there's that one part of you that is just absolutely heartbroken because as soon as Wrecker's chip was turned off, just remorse, just in waves, just flooded over him, and he was aware the whole time. So, like that apology just made my heart break for every clone out there in the galaxy that went through with it and didn't have that moment of like solace
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, agreed. I think a lot. I don't think all the clones had personal relationships with. So I think for some clones it was like just another order, and they didn't really have personal relationships or remorse to feel. But like the ones that we saw in Clone Wars, the series, I feel yes, that would be my guess, and that's really
That,
sad.
I'm hopeful that at some point we see like Rex and the Batch kind of going across the galaxy and maybe gathering Wolf and Gregor and these other clones and helping them get their chips out. But I want to see that because I think some clones will be approached with that and they might not want to like fully confront what they did and be like, no, I'm going to stay with the Empire. And I'd like to see the different reactions that clones have to
Totally.
that.
Mm.
But yeah, it's pretty tragic.
Yeah,
Heavy stuff for an animated show, man.
Yeah.
I feel like Clone Wars got really dark, and Rebels too.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not always reflected in the marketing. I remember how Rebels was initially presented to us before it came out, and then the narratives and the places that it went were very, like, much more adult, much more sinister than what I initially thought it was going to be. And I think Bad Batch at least has set more of a mature tone initially, so we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into as this story gets to its conclusion.
I think as a follow up to Clone Wars, it just felt comfortable doing that. It didn't feel the need to kind of reset for season one and be like, yes, it's an animated show and it's introducing new kids to Star Wars, and it's still TV PG, I think, but it's still accessible to kids, but it doesn't seem like it's a kid show the same way that Rebels began that way and Clone Wars began that way.
Yeah, this show's been pretty violent so far, and a big part of it is the clones dealing with a lot of PTSD. So definitely dark.
Flamethrowers used on civilians. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Dragonus Prime, thanks for the super chat. It's ya boy. To me, the worst part of Order 66 is not just that it makes clones lose themselves, but that they may prefer forgetting when it's over. There you go.
Yeah, right on with what we're talking about. That
Yeah.
I wonder if there's
Yeah. It's like what Hunter said about it. Things were easier back when we just had to worry about following orders, and there's probably clones out there that just prefer that.
I think it's super relatable. I mean, I feel it too. If there's something that I think I might regret, it's definitely easier to push it away and be in denial at first.
Mm-hmm.
it's also easier to just do what you're told than take personal accountability for choices you have to make,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's easy to pass the buck
Like
and
if
say
you
you
kill
were
someone,
following
but it was an
orders.
order, then
right.
Yeah.
That's always been like a real world argument. Just I was just
Yep.
following orders. It's like, well, that's BS.
right.
The Callum Reed, thanks for your question. Is there still room for a scene where Rex explains in more detail Five's involvement with the chip conspiracy to Echo? Does Echo know already? I did see a lot of people talking about how like Echo didn't really react to the little mention that Five's got. I'm just going to assume that he got the full story elsewhere and that it wasn't a big shock to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I guess they had a pretty tight episode. It was paced the way they wanted it, and slowing down to have Echo and Rex reminisce. I don't know. Maybe they recorded that and just didn't use it. I have no idea.
Echo's personality is very different now after what he's experienced as well, and I think that his reaction might not be necessarily what you would expect from Clone Wars Echo at this point.
That's true too.
Mm.
He expresses himself a lot
Very
more
true.
mentally and internally now because he's mainly like a computer up there.
And also just
Yeah.
been through some stuff.
Yeah.
I really liked that scene where they're catching up at the beginning. It felt really, not. I don't want to say nostalgic, but important, and it felt really like real. And I think part of the reason is there was no music there, and I think when there's no music, it sort of slows a scene down and kind of makes you feel like you're really in there with them.
I also
Yeah.
really
Music,
liked
because music
that
is like a
scene.
narrative element. It's like an extra meta narrative element that's for the audience to be like, oh, okay, I understand something exciting's happening. I understand something sad's happening. Blah blah blah. But then when there's just the two of them catching up and there's no music, I think it's so great, and you're just like, it's just them. It's just them.
I loved that whole. Is that the scene in the bar, in Sid's bar,
Yeah, yeah.
where once the chips kind of came up and Rex saw what was happening? Like I like that he immediately went for the pistol, where Rex is still kind of recovering from what
Taking
he
no
went
chances.
through. Yeah,
Yeah.
it were like Ahsoka had to talk him down from just shooting all of his brothers, and she's like, no, we can stun. And like he probably still would have stunned Wrecker, but yeah, I like how on edge he was about the whole thing.
Mhm.
The poncho with the 501st armor, iconic look, by the way. Love it.
I like my whole reasoning behind it being Bale last week and not Rex is like, well, he's wearing a cloak, and like, why wouldn't he just be wearing the armor? I'm like, that's so dumb, Alex. Come on.
Everyone's wearing ponchos now. It's the new thing.
It's all the rage.
Don't get caught on Braca without a poncho, man.
That would have been a fun Easter egg. If they like found a box, pulled a poncho out of it, put it back.
But like, if you're in hiding, okay, never mind. I would be wearing a blanket.
I definitely wouldn't have most of my armor on if I were Rex, but it seemed like he was wearing it. Just, yeah, he had the poncho on top.
Or at least conceal it all the way, like wear your armor and then have long sleeves over it or something.
Mhm.
So you still get your protection, but you're not, or even just spray paint the damn thing. I don't know.
Yeah. James Waterman, thanks for the super chat and question. Bring back pastoral Disney-esque playtime music from episode 2.
Oh, James.
Is that a music joke?
Yes and no. No, there's okay. James. Hey, James streams with me on tomorrow on Saturdays. Bad Batch music
Hi,
commentary.
James.
So in episode 2, there was this like really cheesy music moment, and I think it was like self-aware in its cheesiness, and it just gets stuck in my head all the time. I beg you to revisit it. It's like when the kids are playing, it really sounds like it's, I don't know, merry-go-round music or something.
Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah, when
very
they're playing with the
playful.
ball, right?
I was
Yeah.
thinking Attack of the Clones episode 2.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
yeah, I got what you're saying.
I think I remember that.
They're, yeah, it's really hard to write non-cheesy, like kids having a fun, innocent time music.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, if you want to bring that back, I'm imagining that happening for like Wrecker when he's playing by blowing things up. Next time he gets in a big fight, just like
That is definitely something I always noticed in Star Wars Rebels, is that every time there was even a hint of mischief in a scene, Kevin Kiner's got to bust out like 5 tubas. And it's like bum 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 bum. Like you've got to have
Good-
this like
good
big
observation.
waltzy, like whenever they're making trouble or doing something, like Chopper's doing something naughty. It's
Mm,
like that's definitely his go-to.
yeah.
Yeah, I will say it's an overall animation scoring convention trope. I think of it as like the America's Funniest Home Videos, or the like pranked thing where someone's sneaking up and you hear like a plunk, 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 plunk. It's like, what's gonna happen next? Like people are playing, like we're being mischievous.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's some of that.
All right, Bakey, thanks for your question. In the next episode, will the Empire arrive before the Bad Batch leaves the planet? Yeah, I think they absolutely will. Even if we're wrong about that, I think we'll see the Empire in the next episode. I think the Scrapper Guild calling them out means they've at least got a starting point. They're going to track them somewhere. I think
Do you
we'll see a
think-
confrontation.
Do you think Crosshair's going to be there looking for them?
Yeah. I
it'll
think
be
he'll
leading
bring
the
his new elite squad, his new friends. I hope there's like one of
I
those.
don't really
awkward-
like him.
That's true. But they're scared of him.
Yeah, he asserted his dominance in a big way.
Yeah.
Last time we saw him.
Yeah, I guess friends is a strong word, but I wouldn't mind a scene of like Hunter and Crosshair being like, "Well, you look good. How's your new crew?" Well, they're no wrecker.
Dance off.
Yeah.
Jane Dalton, what's up? Thanks for the question. Do y'all think the Bad Batch might notice some personality changes now that the chip is out? Could Wrecker not be afraid of heights anymore?
Ooh,
Mm.
that's interesting. If they're no longer programmed, or like maybe Wrecker doesn't like to blow stuff up anymore.
No.
He'll be sad about that.
I always thought it would be great if they were just like extra uninhibited in every way.
Oh,
All your
filter,
inhibitions
say
are
whatever
gone.
you want, eat whatever you want, dance like no one's watching. I don't have an inhibited chip anymore.
or what if it unlocks their enhancements even further?
Oh,
That's
That's true.
interesting.
it's like unknown territory what these chips, how they even function in enhanced clone brains in the first
Yeah.
place.
So far, Rex is the only one to have his taken out, and it didn't really change his personality at all. But he also didn't have the kinds of enhancements powers that the Bad Batch has. So I think this could be a fully different ballgame.
Well, if I'm a Kaminoan producing a ton of clones, making these special clones with special powers and stuff, and I know that I have to put an inhibitor chip in every clone, I would think that the inhibitor chips are like super mass produced, not really containing specific like code for each brain, really. I would think it's like more of an add-on, like a Chrome extension type thing
One
that
size
everyone
fits
just
all.
gets.
Yeah.
That's kind of, yeah, that fits with what we've always said about Order 66 is like, well, how do the clones know to attack this person but not Anakin? It's like we've always just assumed that Sidious has like a Google Doc where he adds and removes names where it's like, okay, I got a new Inquisitor, so don't kill this one, and he just types that name in. I like the little firmware update that is kind of across the board.
We got a blacklist and a whitelist.
Uh-huh. I do wonder if the inhibitor chips would be different for the Bad Batch. But yeah,
If they would,
I
then
think
why
they're-
wouldn't they have worked? They probably would have optimized them so that they would have actually
Right.
worked.
yeah.
Mm.
I think the main reason for the chips at all was Order 66. And, they said, oh, we put in these inhibitor chips to keep them docile or whatever. Like, that's the excuse they give in Attack of the Clones. But
Make them suggestible.
yeah, I think it was mostly Order 66, and they gave the Jedi some BS reason.
Absolutely. The Kaminoans have been complicit in pretty much every intimate detail of Palpatine's plan from the start. They probably didn't know all of the names, but they pretty much knew his galactic plan for a span of 10 years, starting when Sifo Dyas placed the order. They had to know in order for it to work properly.
I think they definitely imply that they knew at least some Kaminoans, like Nala Se and Lama Su.
If
And
you
even
think
if they
about it,
didn't know, if they learned, it wouldn't be a deal breaker because they're war profiteers.
Yep.
right?
Like the people
They're
on
very
Canto Bight,
mercenary.
they're profiting off of whatever. They don't care.
Yeah, I don't think they care at
See
all.
these
But they're
thousands of
also like
people.
very isolationist out on their own. They're like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want. You want
Not
to kill a bunch
surprising
of
we're
sorcerers?
okay with
Fine.
That's how it happens. You think you're like, oh, I'm neutral. I just care about the money.
hmm
I'm mostly surprised that Palpatine would place that amount of trust in a third party, knowing that much of his plan. Like that's
Well, he
like
got
I
it out
can
of the
see
Jedi
my way to it,
archives.
but
No
it
one
does
was
seem
going to
somewhat
find
out
their
of character
planet.
that he'd be willing to have them that clued in.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's interesting to wonder how much Palpatine would give away. Like people always ask, oh, did Jango Fett know what the clone army was for? And I think it's explicitly said that he did in Legends, but like now I don't see Palpatine just telling some random bounty hunter what his plan with the
Like,
clone
well,
army was
Django
for.
was told that it was for the Republic to defeat the Separatists. Like, I don't think he was told that these guys are here to kill the Jedi in about 10 years.
Yeah.
But at the
They
same
probably
time,
had-
like, now we're going on like such a big tangent, but like Jango Fett was working with the Separatists. So it's so weird. It's so convoluted.
But again, you know,
All
he's
Palpatine.
profiteering as well. He's not a
Mhm.
Separatist soldier. He's just a bounty hunter who's aligned
Yeah.
himself for a paycheck here.
Sweet
Yeah.
gig. Yeah. Also, I think it's easy to underestimate how far away some of these planets are. Like the core worlds are like one thing, but even like the outer rim and like I don't know, the far, the outer reaches or whatever. What's it called? Outer reaches?
Outer
I don't
Rim.
I don't know.
But Palpatine is always wanting to extend his influence and power in the outer reaches. And that's like something that spans, that's like a plan of his that spans decades. And so I think at this time, probably, I mean, Camino, yeah, like it was erased from the Jedi archives even. I think it felt pretty safe to him.
Probably.
Unknown region. I think that's
Unknown regions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He has unknown regions, wild space.
Yes. Yeah. Which
All
is
that
like
fun stuff.
why he
All
and
those
this,
hard to get places.
this is before he officially teams up with Thrawn, who is supposed to help him with the outer. I forgot the name of word again.
The
The
unknown
faraway
regions.
places, the unknown regions. So as of now, it seems like it's widely unconquered and untraveled. I think.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Dr. Holocron, thanks for your question. Considering how tightly paced the season has been, do you think they'll get Crosshair's chip out next episode while they're on Braca? Kind of touched on this, and I'm with you, Kyle. I would like it if they bring it up. I would like it if they tried, but I don't
Get
think
to the
they
verge
would be
of greatness.
successful. Yeah. I like the idea that they think about that and they're like, oh, we could help Crosshair out because they know what he's going through, or at least
Mhm.
Wrecker does, and they probably want to help him. But I just don't think the opportunity is going to present itself.
Yeah, I need to get more Crosshair content because I'm very much on the edge of like, are we going to save Crosshair or is Crosshair too far gone? And I don't
We're
know.
going to save him.
I'm hopeful for salvation.
My co-host Bendu is convinced that Crosshair is going to be the first Death Trooper.
We do like that theory.
I've had that theory too, just because he physically he's like tall and a little bit more thin, and just design wise looks very similar to the Death Troopers. So I do like that theory a lot.
Totally. Could mirror Anakin getting the suit on after suffering grievous injury. Perhaps Crosshair is injured similarly, and his life is saved by being made a Death Trooper. You know.
I mean,
like
I
the
think
Death Troopers are supposed to be like more accurate. So if they made him more like Crosshair,
maybe
I
he's
still
just like
think
the Death
that
Trooper trainer or something.
I think that he could be like a model for Death Troopers, even if they do. I'm still hopeful they rescue him and they could still be like,
I hope
oh,
so.
we had a good thing going. We'll just
yeah.
model them after that Crosshair guy.
I think it would be cool to see someone like Krennic pop up in this season or this show, because the Death Troopers were mostly with him. So I feel like if that's the case, Krennic might pop up in an episode and be very interested in Crosshair.
Ooh,
Really see.
if Krennic pops up, then I hope that there's Krennic Tarkin stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Them together on screen is always a blast.
Got another super chat from Jane Dalton. If we stay on Braca next episode, could there be some scrappers who are loyal to the Empire and some who are against the Empire because things are starting to change with the work they have on Braca, like in Fallen Order?
That'd be
So
interesting because
do we think Braca is like all loyal to the Empire, or is it a mix?
I think they're probably, like we've been talking about, I figure they're just, we're doing what we do to survive, and we are scrappers, and this is what you've given us to scrap. But I could kind of see that attitude changing, because I thought Braca looked fairly nice in comparison to how it looks 5 years later in Fallen Order. In this episode, I was like, it doesn't look as terrible. Still pretty rough, but not as bad. So maybe as the Empire continues to take over, their situation will decline. But for now, I think they're probably on board with whatever the Empire wants.
Prof talks about how their situation is definitely worse under the Empire, but it wasn't exactly great under the Republic either. I think that they were disenfranchised when this changeover happened in the first place. And I don't know. I think that they're like a bunch of working humps who don't think that the galactic government cares about them. So why should they care if there's some sort of changeover? And oh, look, they've got a new flag up there now. I'm still making crap wages, ripping ships apart. So I don't think it's really on their radar so much, other than they've got these new orders. If you see people call the Empire, and they'll probably focus on that because it's part of their job. But I don't feel like there's any sort of fierce loyalty towards either the Republic or the Empire, really. If you're someone on Braca, you don't have, you pretty much you got nothing.
I think that applies to a lot of places, actually. Like, I would really question people who really, I mean, what are they going to do? Not be loyal? Like, it's in their best interest to be loyalists to survive, because it's much more dangerous to not be. And I mean, to a lot of people, the Republic, the Empire, I mean, what's the huge difference to a lot of people in the galaxy? So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Madman's Knowledge, thanks for the question. I want more development for Tech and Echo than we've gotten so far. I agree. Glad the trailer seems to have only shown the first half of the season. I also agree. Yeah, we're almost out of footage from the trailer, so that's great.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that too. Tech and Echo.
Yeah, Tech and Echo, I feel
They've-
like have taken a backseat for the first half of the season, and especially Echo. Like, I want him to, when he does speak up, I'm like, yes, I'm really digging what you're saying. I want more.
They've kind of dabbled in the two of them and like showing how they're different, because I feel like at first people were like, oh, how do they need Echo when they have Tech? But they've shown a couple of different times how the two of them work together and how they both have like different specialities. But yeah, I hope we get an Echo-centric episode.
Yeah, they're like the clones that don't get as much attention because they're not as outgoing. And I feel that as an introvert.
Tech's the one that's always stating the things that he thought everyone else thought was obvious, and
I like Tech. I want more Tech.
yeah, Tech's my favorite, I think.
Me too. Me too.
Dr. Holocron, thanks for the question. Also, if they do get Crosshair's chip out, do you think he'll defect from the Empire or stay with them? Oof. I mean, Brian Ward brought this up in the chat earlier. Like, if they do take his chip out and he still sides with the Empire,
that would suck.
that would be tragic.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
They had their whole argument before his chip was enhanced. So, I mean, it's already in there in his personality.
But it also was seeming to
Was that chippy though?
fire off. Like,
Right.
I do think his personality is more inclined to go that way, but
We only had about 45 seconds of interaction before Order 66 actually took place. But in those 45 seconds, Crosshair was given a lot of sass. Like, he was already very ornery and not fully eye to eye with them before the order came down. So I feel like it's very possible that it might go that way, because he already had that presence in his personality before the chip even tried to come on.
I agree with
know
you,
that I
but
saw
I'm just
enough
like,
to
I want to hold on to that hope that
Me too.
I mean, I'm not saying I've seen enough to make it, it's definitely this way or the other, but I think it's the suggestion that it could be that way. There's an inkling there.
He kind of gave off a vibe that he was a bit more strict in the Clone Wars too. Like, he just
I mean, he's
off that vibe.
the Raphael of the group. He's just kind of a jerk. but you keep him around.
Yeah.
Thurl Unfiction, thanks for the super chat. What are the birds and rats on Braca? Like, what are the birds and rats on Braca finally in music got fever like for more cowbells of there?
What?
I'm trying to decipher.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there's birds and rats on Braca.
There's birds and rats. I did like seeing
Gotta
the
have
rats. That was
cowbell.
another Fallen Order thing.
Mm.
They were layered in such a cool sound design sequence. I think I wrote, okay, yeah, it starts around 1345 is like the different layers that we're hearing are like obviously the footsteps, the Dianoga stuff, and the rats squeaking, the scampering, but we hear that after the opening of the heavy metal door, and we hear like the weighty, echoey, like booming sound of the door as they're opening it, and you can see that they're like it's effortful to open it because they only open it halfway, and then they kind of slide under it and then finish opening it, and the sound like something like that doesn't work unless the sound design matches it, because the sound has to convince you that that's a heavy door. Like you're just looking at animation. You don't know how heavy the door is unless. So that was like a very convincing sound design moment and much appreciated. And also, as soon as they open the metal door, that's when we start hearing the like ambient echoey beep. Not until they open the door. It's from far away, and as they walk closer, you hear the beep get louder. Meanwhile, we hear the rats squeaking, they're scampering, and then like when the rats are going up some metal thing, like also the force, like the weight of the rats as they move, because when things move, it kind of pushes other things. So we hear the sound of the other things getting pushed. It's just, and then all the various like there's the whoo whoo thing happening, and then there's all these screen pulses. It's just like, and then there's like the MRI machine sound, where it's like this heavy thump. There's so much going on there, and the layers are they're so beautiful. I mean, they're kind of creepy, but it's so intricate there. I mean, really well done spot there.
So that's stuff that like I don't even think to
Yeah.
look at and point out. So that's very cool. And I love
Sound
your
has
point
to
about
sell the animation.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great point.
They were making a cowbell joke.
Oh, okay.
Cowbell.
They have a fever, more cowbell. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cowbells, I get it.
That's what I thought, but I was like, wait, is there bells?
Bells at a far.
Yeah.
Charlie Ashby, what's up? Charlie's in the chat from Imperial Senate Podcast. In case there's any doubt that Rex was Anakin's clone partner, he has a dope walk through the smoke mist scene. Yeah, very extra, very Skywalker.
Mhm.
Also very
yeah.
Holdo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jared Johnson, thanks for the super chat. I wonder when we see Stormtrooper armor. Yeah, when are we going to get the classic white Stormtrooper armor?
Holding out for those E11s as well.
I think it'll happen in the series because we saw it at the end of the Clone Wars in that finale. So it's like they have it all modeled. I think we need at least a season. Maybe at the end of this season, I could see that happening. Of like, all right, we're no more clone troopers, we're stormtroopers now.
Mm-hmm.
But
And do you think they'll be recruiting too actively?
I think like I could see them kind of rushing through this. They already.
I would love to see that. I would love to see the Imperial Academy at Karita come back to canon.
That'd be cool.
I think that's the only way that anyone can be loyal to the Empire. I think that's the primary reason they want to phase out the clones. Even if the clones are better, even if the clones were cheap, I think they need to make people feel loyal to the Empire by, starting this military, basically.
Absolutely. And it's a
Yeah.
brilliant strategy.
That's how you get loyalty. You make people fight for it and die for it, and then they feel a vested interest in it, and they'll always justify it because they'll feel that they died for a cause.
Like
I mean, if you're
in
going
my
to take
head,
over a planet, open up a recruitment center there. How are you supposed to fight off an oppressive force if it's made up of your neighbors and your relatives? If you go to a really poor world, you give these people an opportunity to join the Empire's army. Now the Empire's army is there forever, and you can't do anything about it.
it's like in my head, I'm kind of thinking that it feels fast for like stormtrooper armor and Star Destroyers and TIE fighters to start showing up, but I'm also
Yeah,
like,
that's been like a month.
yeah,
Yeah.
but Star Wars is always kind of just not cared. Yeah, like things take as long as they need to take. How long did we take to build the first Death Star? Like 20 something years. Second
We
one,
had a
3
time
years.
skip
It's
in this
fine.
episode
Like,
for the first time, I think. We have a conversation
Maybe.
in Sid's cantina. Rex says he'll be in touch, and the next thing you know, we're in hyperspace on our way
That's
to
true.
meeting on Braca. So I'm wondering how much time passed between those two scenes.
yeah,
I also don't
Or
believe
the
we've had any other
entire
time
series.
skips in this show that I can think of.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Nothing too long. I was going to say about the recruitment. The next super chat is from the one who cannot smell, and it says, "Do you think that early stormtroopers will adopt the mantra 'Good soldiers follow orders'?" I like if we see that mantra pop up again, it would be interesting if we saw it on like the propaganda, the imperial propaganda posters or something like
Mm.
that.
I feel like that's a level 2 mantra. I feel like that's not how you get people to join.
Yeah.
That's what you tell them when they're already committed. You tell them to
Mm.
join because you're like, fight for the cause.
Hmm.
And then when they're
Also,
already in it, you can do that.
I'm wary of leaning too far into like a stormtrooper motto because anything that gets too entrenched, you're going to have to explain why it's no longer a thing in the originals. You know?
Right.
We never hear one TK go, "Good soldiers follow orders," and then that would be the case if it becomes like a full blown like thing. So
I mean,
whatever
they can always add
I
it in
want to
the
see how
most
far they
special
take that
edition.
if they do decide to run with that phrase.
Mm.
Oh, there
I
could
think
be like
that's going to
various
stay a
phrases
clone
on.
thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I do think like if there are various recruitment posters and various, outreach efforts that use different slogans, sort of like commercials, I think there could be like short-term catchphrases based on like small marketing efforts, but not like an overall stormtrooper one. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
now I'm thinking this season's going to end with like someone putting up a poster that's like, "We want you."
With
Yeah.
some triumphant
I like
Major
that.
Key Imperial March theme playing. I love it.
Yeah,
when it
that
does
would be
that.
that would be cool if it ends like that with the Imperial March and then like the recruitment starting.
I like that. I
Little
like that
kid
ending a lot.
Yeah.
Red Vega, thanks for the super chat. This one's, I think, for Molly. It starts with a math equation, Molly. So,
This goes back to our
Yeah.
live stream from Wednesday.
by solving the equation A equals 2 minus 9A, the value of A will be SO is Rex's job to liberate clones from their inhibitor
No,
chips?
that's the value of A, is what you just read.
Oh.
The value
Oh.
of A is 2 minus 9A. Someone put a math equation in our last live stream, and I was just like, what does this mean?
I still think they're trying to get us to do their homework for them.
Probably. Oh, and then
so
I
is
went on a
Rex's-
giant rant
Yeah.
about how math is stupid and no one needs math.
All right, before we get too far away from this, I just think that's funny. Good soldier, smash that like button. Thanks, Lindsay. But the actual question is, so is Rex's job to liberate clones from their inhibitor chips? I would like to think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the purpose he's kind of giving himself right now. Because, like, when we go back to the end of the last episode with the Martez sisters, the reason why I thought that was Rex was just the way that she said that line, like, found a group of rogue clones, thought you might want to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I picked up on that the second time. First time I thought it was more nefarious, like, hey, I cash in on that bounty you have. But the second time I was like, no, you know what? It's totally someone who knows clones.
Yeah.
Like it went over my head the first time I watched it, though.
I mean, I think they were trying to go for both, where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, is this good? Is this bad? We can't tell. Also,
Yeah, they do that with her character for sure.
Before we get too far away from the motto, James Waterman says Wilhelm Scream is the official Stormtrooper motto. That's good.
Possibly, yeah.
And it's in the original trilogy. So there's no need to explain away why we don't hear it.
If anything, you have to explain why it's not being put in more.
Seriously. Yeah, if Stormtroopers were going to have a motto, it would be the Wilhelm Scream, and then I would say, open the blast doors, close the blast doors.
Close the blast doors, yeah.
Tyler Chartier, do you think the lizard bounty was a Salamiri?
No.
I thought it for 2 seconds, and then I remembered what I was watching.
See,
no.
And that's one of those things where you like start to make these connections where there are none, and you got to walk yourself back
Talking
off
yourself
the
down
ledge.
from the ledge. Exactly. It was definitely
I
that for
can't-
me for like that long.
I
If
can't
it
really
were-
remember what the Salamari looked like, but I feel like that lizard had like really colorful, almost like feathers or something. Not feathers, but like
They're like a yellowish green, and they have a long curled tail and kind of a snout. It didn't really resemble one that
Kind
much
of
to me.
snaky.
yeah.
The size was right though.
I just
also-
remember the one that was on your Thrawn
Mhm.
action figure.
Oh, that's cool. I just like that. I like the deliberate, like the dig. I like the lizard dig that she gives
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it really shows like the status difference between different creatures in Star Wars, which is like a soapbox that I go on very too often. But she really she illustrated it right there. I'm a lizard, you're a lizard, but you're like the pet. You're the kind that's a pet, and I'm like a real one.
Not on the
Yeah.
keyboard, girl. Sorry.
It's all right. Red Vega, thanks for another super chat. Too bad we didn't see Calculus Kestis on Braca. Oh man, Molly, this is your fault. Your rant caused all of these math puns. So
I know.
I mean, I like it, but
All the math stands are going to come after me.
Because there are so many.
Iceberg 11327. Thanks for your question. Do you think the batch could get a mission to go to Utapau because they have assets made for that planet from Crystal Crisis, like Ord Mantell and Pantora? I like that idea.
I hope
'cause,
so.
Yeah,
Be
That'd be
interesting to go back to Utapau, yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
super cool.
I love their skin. The Utapauans, what the Powans?
The
How do you pronounce
Powans,
that?
yeah.
The Powans. It's the corduroy face. I just want to touch it.
Yeah.
I mean,
love that
I
would
think
make
that makes a lot of sense because you're right. They had like assets kind of made for Pantora and Ord Mantell, and now we're getting to see them. So yeah, if they're just going to keep on using stuff that they almost used, I think that's a great idea.
This is why I'm suspicious Dryden Voss is going to make an appearance at some point because we saw him in a
he's coming.
hologram for like 0.5
Mhm.
seconds. And everyone else that's had that treatment would be Depa and Caleb, both of whom showed up in Bad Batch. So I'm pretty sure he's going to show up at some point. Just
Alex
because
has been demanding that we see Dryden in this season.
Yeah.
It would be great. I really liked his character in Solo, and I'd love to get some more of him. He's so just like smarmy and like good at being like a bad guy,
Mhm.
enjoying himself so much.
I think that would be such a great next step for the Bad Batch to be working for these people and they don't know who they are, and like to kind of realize, oh, we're working for Crimson Dawn, this criminal syndicate. Oh, and maybe we even find out that it's ruled by Maul, that guy we fought against, and like should we be taking this job? I think you know deep down you shouldn't be. So how do they deal with stuff like that?
That would provide for a really interesting conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Red Vega with another super chat. What kind of chip would you have in your brains? I personally would go with Doritos chips because, or instead of the inhibitors, but to each his own. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Doritos.
I think I'd go Cheeto. Is that a chip?
That's not a chip.
Why not?
Oh boy, here we go.
I'd go with
That's a puff.
just a good old fashioned tortilla chip because for me it's about the dip more than the chip itself.
Mm.
So we're talking chips in our brains.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. I can't even
I mean,
comprehend this.
We already have if we got the vaccine, we already have our
I would-
microchips.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go with Mantell mix.
There you go.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
Single little popcorn piece right there.
Yeah. Easy to find if you need to remove it.
Yeah.
Madman's Knowledge, thanks for your question. FYI, I'm reading Lords of the Sith right now, and as long as they don't change it, the Empire is still using V-Wings 5 years later. Yeah, but in the Ahsoka novel, they're using TIE fighters at one point, and that's only 1 year later. So my headcanon is just that the rollout of Imperial technology happens not all at once. You know, It's a
Absolutely.
big galaxy, so they have to stagger it. So I'm fine with whatever they choose to do. If they want to show TIE fighters this season, like, that's fine. It still works in my opinion.
We'll probably never see it on screen because it's so visually misleading, but I'm sure in canon there exist periods of times where you have TIE fighters and V-Wings flying alongside each other, you know.
Wouldn't
and maybe
that be
there's
cool?
even one really old ARC 170 in the squad that hasn't been retired yet. Like, it wasn't like they flipped a switch and all these ships became other ships. Like, there definitely was a very gradual phasing in and phasing out. They probably had a very motley crew for a while there of like an assortment of different types as they were changing them out.
I mean, I would love that idea. V-Wings have just not gotten enough screen time. I really like V-Wings and we should see more of them. But I think that's a really cool idea to see V-Wings and TIE fighters flying side by side. I like it.
Yeah,
I'm
otherwise
imagining
it's
the job on an
wasteful.
Imperial Y-Wing.
I mean, I also feel like there are so many escapades that the Empire goes out on. We only see a small fraction of them. So, I mean, various fleets and, could be comprised of different kinds of ships.
Yeah, maybe all the V-Wings were given to the Grand Army of the Empire that Han fought in at the Battle of Mumbai from Solo, which was a separate military organization to the Galactic Imperial Navy. Maybe that's where the V-Wings went.
I could also see if this show builds up to a Clone or Camino or both rebellion, which I like that idea a lot, then it kind of makes sense to have you got your V-Wings flying against your TIE fighters. So whatever. I just hope there's more V-Wings.
Bottom line, more V-Wings.
Yeah.
More tech,
and then,
more Echo, more V-Wings.
And
Also
Muchi
more
too.
Kaminoans.
Yeah.
while we're at it. And then our last super chat, we should probably wrap up here pretty soon. It's from Smart Freak 5030. Anyone else notice the cable that they used to cross the cavern was yellow like the climbing cables in Fallen Order?
I
Alex
did,
pointed that out earlier.
and it made me very happy.
That's a nice connection. I appreciate that.
Does it bother you when there's I don't play the games, and so this is like a big blank area for me. I mean, I only know from what friends tell me and what I look up, but does it bother you when animated shows or when any shows get like video gamey? That's like a criticism that I hear sometimes, and how do you feel about it? Because I don't know. I don't notice it.
No, I don't think so. I mean, sometimes that's just storytelling where I think The Mandalorian does it a lot, where he gets sent on a new side quest every episode.
Mhm.
You go to a place and you get a task to complete, and then you go do that task, and then you get rewarded for it. Like, no, I just think that's
with
a
an armor
style.
upgrade of all things.
Yeah, right. And then you unlock your jetpack at the end of the season. So yeah, I just see it as another storytelling format. So no, it doesn't really bug me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would have to be pretty overtly video gamey, and it would have to last for a very long time for me to find it like a negative experience. Like I'm usually tickled when I see something. Oh, that reminds me of a video game I played, or like this feels very much like a level from a game. Like I find that fun when it's used sparingly. If it was a whole episode of that might be kind of tiresome.
So when it's like a sequence or like
A sequence,
something
is
like the
good.
yellow
Exactly.
thing is fine, or like in the Mandalorian when he's like getting his armor. I heard everyone say that was very video gamey.
It's
That's fine
small
with me.
enough that it can be considered referential, rather
Gotcha.
than this is the focus. We're just going to borrow this whole device.
Mm.
It's more of a
Mhm.
nod.
I really like this question, so I wanted to bring it up. Well, James says that he'll loan you your his PS4 so you can play Fallen Order. So you should. It's
Great.
great story, great music
It's
too.
awesome.
But I like this question. Left Automated, what happened to the clones that were Omega's age at that point in time? Like, where did they all go?
I
don't know.
I don't
but I'm
want to think
scared
about that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know.
scared about the answer.
Honestly, they were probably just given like a new education system and then brought up and given Imperial jobs, I would imagine. Maybe not even soldier jobs. Maybe they were like just sent off to sanitation or something.
I like that. I like that better than some.
They're
of
the
darker
janitors working at
implications.
the Imperial Academy or something. Who knows?
Do we know for a fact that she is from a generation where there are lots of them? I sort of got the impression that she was like the only one of her.
I agree. I think she was created on her own, not part of a batch.
She doesn't have peers.
Yeah, I agree
that's
with
what I think.
But we did in the first episode see a group of like the younger clones, like the clone cadets. So there are still some young-ish, not fully.
But I assume that they're aging.
Yeah.
Lama Su made it clear that he was under the impression that it was going to be an ongoing contract, and he was already getting the next batch of clones ready. So I'm sure there were some children, like,
oh yeah, that's true. We saw
when the order came down.
We saw babies in tubes. So like, yeah, what are they going to do with all that?
I wonder if they can change the accelerated age process in some of the clones. Because I always thought it would be cool to see. Because they already have Tamir Morrison in Mandalorian, I always thought it would be cool to see like a random clone working somewhere that might be one of the ones that was post Order 66.
You'd think you'd see some. It's a big galaxy. The fact that we don't see a million Thames walking around really kind of has a dark connotation to it. But we'll have to wait and see.
I like to think that they're maybe all adopted out and either in hiding or raised like really far away, and I maybe don't even know that they're clones.
I like the idea. Maybe,
we joked that wherever Cut went with his family by the end of this season or series, like all the leftover clones will go live with him, and he'll be the king of the clones.
Yeah. I like that. They find a distant planet, send all the clone children there, and they all are raised happily ever after.
That's a very nice thought, Alex.
They all go to the clone farm.
They go to the same place where all of our pets go. You know,
which is
that farm, that nice farm.
A nice
like
farm
animals?
Planet. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They live happily ever after, and we just don't see them again.
But not you, Anakin. Not you.
We got one more super chat here. Julie MC, thank you. You finished high school today. Can I get a woohoo? Woohoo! Congratulations. But that is going to be it for today's show. It's been a long one. This might have been our longest one so far. Before we wrap up,
there was a lot to dive into there. So
before we wrap up, Kyle and Xanthi, if you can just tell everyone where they can find you and follow you online, and maybe say what you do on your channel. There are already links to everything in the description for Twitter and YouTube, but just tell the people where they can find you. Xanthi, why don't you start?
Sure. I'm on Star Wars Music Minute, or that's the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Star Wars Music Minute. And it's a podcast and I guess now a YouTube channel too. And basically we talk about the music and sound of Star Wars. On the podcast, we're going through The Last Jedi 5 minutes at a time, sort of like if you know the podcast Star Wars Minute. I'm keeping up with their season, so both of us are doing The Last Jedi at the same time. And then on the weekends, I stream with a couple of my friends, James Waterman, who's been in the chat, and Justin Scheid, and we do specifically Bad Batch commentary. And we quiz each other, we recreate sounds from it, recreate music, and it's a lot of fun.
Kyle?
Oh, I guess it's me now. Okay, so I'm Kyle Katarn. My YouTube channel is Kyle Katarn, and it's mostly content reactions and reviews of everything Star Wars related. I post episode reactions to all of the main Disney Plus releases, meaning Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Bad Batch, and then I also try to review and react to as many Star Wars fan films as possible. Actually, just this week, I reacted to my 100th Star Wars fan film. I try to give signal boosts to as many smaller creators as I possibly can. I think it's the most amazing passion project and the best expression of your love for a saga that you can possibly do than creating a film that you can't make any money on. So I really try to give those people a signal boost whenever I can. Outside of reactions and reviews, I also stream on Twitch. I do a lot of Star Wars gaming. You know, all of the titles that are currently in vogue, like Battlefront and Jedi Fallen Order. I'm playing Republic Commando for the first time. And every Wednesday, I host Comics with Katarn, where I will read the latest Marvel canon comics and just do some sight reading, voice acting on the fly. That's a lot of fun as well.
Ooh.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to talk about Bad Batch with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
For having me.
Yeah,
I've
anytime.
watched every single one of these, so it's an honor.
You're going to watch this one? Or is
Probably not. I think I experienced it pretty fully.
Got it firsthand this time.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up for the day. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for your questions, and thank you for your super chats. We will see you next week for episode 8, the mid-season. This is not a mid-season finale. We're just halfway through the season, but we'll see you next Friday. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you.